This is The Fifth Estate, a conversation between young African scholars from the Foto School of Government and Professor Ngunjiri. This week, we will disagree with country. In fact, we will disagree with President Uhuru Kenyatta for the first time. And we will disagree with the cowardly leaders in Jubilee. Last week, we submitted the following. In politics, you must play by the rules. But if the rules change, you must change how you play. The rules in the October election have changed. And if this is true, the country, President Kenyatta, and the Jubilee cowards should change how they play. And this is why at the Foto School of Government, we celebrated a Lone Ranger by the name of Ngunjiri Wabogo. This man refused to play by the rules. Although his horns were still green as an MP, he decided to aggress Maraga. Then the cowards in Jubilee misadvised the president. They told him that this was a bad idea, and this is how the Ngunjiri petition was killed. In our view, the Maraga petition was inspired by God. Stopping it was a big, fat mistake. Consider why.
For starters, and as the Chinese taught us, you cannot cross a big river by constantly going back to the banks of the river to rest. By aggressing Maraga, Ngunjiri had already told us what is in the heart of Jubilee. In fact, Ngunjiri had swum halfway through the river, then he was called back to the banks to rest. The problem with this approach is this. Now Maraga knows the Jubilee intentions. And if he started a civilian coup, then he has to ensure that it is not an aborted coup. Maraga will take it to its conclusive end. In our view, therefore, the September 1st ruling was not the real coup. It was the John the Baptist coup. It was the coup before the coup. If this is true, then the real civilian coup will happen next week, on Tuesday. Tuesday is Judgment Day. The Maraga judges will give us, the people, their judgment. And with this judgment, they will render IEBC impotent and they will make an election impossible. This is how the presidency will be snatched from Uhuru's mouth as we watch. And it will happen in slow motion, right in front of our very own eyes.
With the Maraga ruling, the country was thrusted into a black swan moment. Such a moment is abrupt and is only understood long after it has happened. And yet, it happens right before our very eyes as we watch helplessly. And this is what is happening to us today. We have been infected by the black swan virus. As Professor Nassim Taleb taught us, once this virus attacks a nation, everybody buries their heads in the sand. And that is why, when war broke out in Lebanon, fathers told their children that the war would end in a matter of days. But they waited in hotel rooms in Cyprus and Greece for 17 years before the war ended. The same happened in the Cuban crisis. Cuban refugees in Miami were convinced that they would return home in a matter of days, but they lived in exile for 60 years. If Maraga has introduced the black swan virus into our national politics, expect him to nullify the October 17th election as well. Thereafter, he will force an election every 60 days until Raila becomes president. Let us not bury our heads in the sand like the Cubans and the Lebanese.
If the country is in a dark place and Maraga has infected us with a black swan virus, how do we get out of this dark moment? In our view, the path to truth and light is in the act of questioning. Albert Einstein taught us to question everything. We must question Maraga's competence even if he is a legal saint. Question his morality even if he says he is incorruptible. Question his sanity although he has never tasted alcohol. We must assume nothing. We must leave nothing to chance. More so because Maraga does not add up. And this is why if Ngunjiri had evidence and yet was stopped, God will judge Jubilee harshly. He will give them the justice they deserve. But there is a rider to this. If Ngunjiri has evidence against Maraga, he must leak it to the public. Then the public will try Maraga in the court of public opinion. Besides, Maraga has shown nothing but contempt to the people. He has boycotted Parliament, which is the People's Assembly, and told us that voters do not matter. This man should be tried by the people. Period.
Jubilee is currently treating Maraga like an eggshell. Yet at the core, Maraga comes across as a hardcore who is politically naive. He comes across as a legal fundamentalist who likes it when he is always right. You cannot deal with this kind of a man using kid's gloves. What Maraga needs is a rough tackle, and Ngunjiri had begun doing it. But Maraga is also a man of contradictions. On the one hand, he insists that the election must be done following the law strictly. But on the other, he sets up conditions that make it completely impossible for this to happen. If Maraga is not intellectually challenged, then he is a foxy schemer, in my view. From nowhere, this man has made himself the de facto president of Kenya. And between now and when the president is sworn in November or whatever that time will be, Maraga will be the most powerful person in the country. If this does not disturb Jubilee, then they are deluded. More so because this election will not be won in rallies. Numbers don't count. It will be won in boardrooms. And Maraga is currently in control of the boardrooms.
As a young student of law, I am not at ease with big political science concepts like Black Swan and civilian coup. However, there is one thing I know about truth. All truths must be subjected to two tests. The first is the coherence theory of truth. It is about things adding up. Maraga's judgment of next week must create a paralysis in IEBC. It must make an election impossible. If this happens, then Maraga's actions will be coherent. They will add up. Anything short of this will make his truth incoherent. The second is the correspondence theory of truth. It is about consistency. If Maraga nullified the presidential election because of computers, he must nullify the entire election because it was conducted using the same computers. If Maraga's truth is consistent, then the courts must nullify the entire election from MCA to governor. And they will use the Mother Karua petition to achieve this. But I could also be wrong. I am just a student.
Before we conclude, we have a random thought for Jubilee, and we will start with fresh Ngunjiri, the prophet they stopped. Mr. Ngunjiri, if you ask a stupid question, you become a fool for only 5 minutes. But if you do not ask a question at all, you become a fool forever. Your questions on Maraga were valid, but they made you look stupid for 5 minutes. In the long run, however, those who misadvise the president on this Maraga petition will look foolish forever. Now we'll give another random thought to Jubilee people. The enemy took Uhuru and Ruto to ICC. We must never forget that. The charges were fabricated. They were a lie. And the ICC collapsed. This was a miracle of God. But Uhuru and Ruto did not use this victory to deal with the enemy. And this is why we are here today. In sum, we get the justice we deserve. Period.
And now, our final thought. Indira Gandhi taught us that questioning is the basis of all progress. And those who do not question are condemned to live in bondage. If this is true, we must conclude with 3 questions. 1. Raila told us that there will be no election, and he has clarified that this is not a boycott. Put simply, elections will not happen. Last time we checked, Raila has no powers to make an election happen or not happen. The only way he can stop an election is through unconventional means. The question therefore is this: what is he planning? And is Maraga a part of it? 2. The Supreme Court judgment of next week has the potential to paralyze IEBC. This decision is likely to stop the October election. When Raila says there will be no election, is this what he is talking about? 3. Is Raila precipitating a crisis that will justify a military coup? Is he creating a crisis that only the military can resolve? Is this what he means by having no elections? In our view, we live in black swan moments. Anything is possible.